Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam rasulullah. Jazakumullah khair for all attending, those who are present, those online. I'm your brother Majid Baheba. I'm the development manager with CAIR-NY. CAIR-NY is the Council on American Islamic Relations, New York chapter, the civil rights organization protecting the Muslim community here in New York, protecting your rights, defending Islam, and being there for the community at their time of need. On today's workshop, we're doing is an immigrants' rights workshop. Thank you for the brothers here at ICNA for holding this workshop with us. Please do view our website, CAIR-NY.org, to find out more information about us and how you can get part of all the amazing work that we do. So just to clarify, I'm not a lawyer. I'm the development manager with CAIR-NY, not a lawyer. This is not a legal intake session. This is a learning moment. This is for us to learn. We're here just as educators. And we'll continue with the program. There's some questions here, but we can skip that. But welcome, thank you for everyone joining today to know about your rights as immigrants in New York City. Before we start, you made it clear that I'm not a lawyer. This is an education session. If I'm talking too fast, just raise your hand, let me know, and I'll slow down. And so we'll learn about our immigrants' rights in New York City. We'll also cover updates on policy changes, such as DACA, temporary protected status, the travel ban, and public charge. Please make sure to take these information sheets we have. We have them in Bangla as well. Our cards over there, what to do if you're interacting with law enforcement. ICE gives you a quick rundown of what to do. We'll be explaining that really in deep in this presentation. And there's our phone number, our email that you can reach out to us. Our objectives, our goals for today are, first, to learn about recent changes to federal immigration policy, and that may affect you. Second, to learn how to identify and interact with federal immigrant officers in public and in private spaces. Third is to learn how to access free and legal services and resources. And lastly, to learn about COVID-19 treatment and testing. So we'll learn about immigration enforcement actions and how we can be prepared. So immigration enforcement actions are when ICE enforces immigration laws, such as conducting investigations and or making arrests. Regardless of your immigration status, it is important to know your rights when interacting with ICE in order to keep yourself and your community safe. So generally, immigration enforcement has increased under the Trump administration, which can be seen by the increasing investigations, audits, arrests across the country by immigration authorities. And some of these practices still continue as well. There are some important things for us to know since they will come up a lot in the presentation. So some useful terms we'll get to know. Our first term is the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. DHS is the federal agency that oversees immigration matters. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and United States Citizenship and Immigration Services are a part of the DHS. Next, we have ICE. ICE is US, stands for U.S. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. ICE is a federal agency within the DHS that enforces immigration law. A lawful permanent resident, or LPR, is a person that has been officially granted the right to reside permanently in the United States, which includes permission to work in the United States. LPRs are sometimes referred to as green card holders. An undocumented person is someone without legal immigration status living in the United States, including people who overstay after entering on a visa. Our next term is public areas. A public area is a space where anyone can go. Examples of this is a retail store, a supermarket, public building, library, government building, etc. These are all public areas, as well as in the street and on the sidewalk. These are important to know public and the difference between a public area and a private area, because when you're interacting with immigration enforcement, it makes a difference. Where are you? If you're in a public area or a private area. Private areas are spaces that is not generally accessible to the public, such as your home, employee-only areas at the workplace. Lastly, we have warrants. Warrants is an official document that gives government agents certain permissions. We will discuss the different types of warrants and their uses later in the presentation. Are there any terms you would like me to repeat or
No.
continue?
Yeah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay. In the last 3 years, there have been a lot of changes to federal immigration policies. They can happen quickly and be confusing. We are going to cover the most up-to-date information on some of the major policy changes. First is DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. DACA is a federal immigration program that began in 2012 under President Obama that helps undocumented immigrants who came to the United States as young people. DACA provides eligible undocumented immigrants with temporary protection from deportation and access to work authorization. Currently, the federal government must continue to accept renewal of DACA applications only. The government is not accepting any new applications. For more details, please see our available one-pager. Since taking office, President Biden has issued a memorandum encouraging the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security to do everything in their power to preserve and fortify the DACA program. If you have any questions about how this may affect you, please call the Action NYC hotline, which is 1-800-354-0365 between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. from Monday to Friday. The next big policy change we'll talk about is the travel ban. So the travel ban puts varying travel and immigration restrictions on certain people from 13 designated countries by varying visa issuance and or entry into the United States. There are some exceptions. The countries currently were affected by the travel ban were Iran, Libya, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen, Somalia, Nigeria, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, and Myanmar, known as Burma, as well as Tanzania and Sudan. It's important to still to know this because since taking office, President Biden repealed the travel ban that restricted entry to the United States from these countries, and that was effective on January 20, 2021, and means all embassies and consulates must allow people who were previously banned from obtaining visas to apply for and go through the process, and enable those who were denied a visa an opportunity to reapply or reopen their case. To understand how this may impact you, please call the Action NYC hotline or 1-800-354-0365 between 9 and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The third major policy change we are covering is temporary protected status. Temporary protected status, or TPS, allows individuals from certain countries to remain in the United States if it is unsafe for them to return to their home country due to a humanitarian emergency there. For example, the federal government may designate a country for TPS if there's an armed conflict, like a civil war, or a natural disaster, earthquake. So that means they can stay in the country because of the TPS status. This enables recipients to work in the United States lawfully and protect them from deportation as long as the TPS designation is in effect. The following countries are currently designated for TPS: El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The future of TPS for many of these countries is uncertain. People should make sure to get the most up-to-date information about TPS designations. The fourth federal policy is public charge. Can you raise your hand if you heard of public charge? You heard of public charge before? Do you want to share a little bit about it? Okay, so public charge, it's the rule that makes it harder for some people to get green cards. The Trump administration has announced a rule change that may impact when a non-citizen is considered a public charge for immigration purposes. The rule may make it harder for someone to get a green card for visas because some immigrants must show they will not be a public charge in their immigration applications. This test only applies in certain situations, including when someone is applying for a green card, or if they are extending their certain visas, and it only applies to some categories of people applying for green card or visas. When the test applies, federal immigration law allows immigration officials to deny green cards and visas if they find that an applicant is likely to become a public charge. It is important to know this rule came into effect on February 24th, 2020. This rule change does not change eligibility requirements for public benefits program. Getting care, treatment, or testing for COVID-19 will not make you a public charge or hurt your ability to apply for a green card. Getting charity or discounts in medical care will not hurt your ability to apply for a green card. There's no public charge test when green card holders apply for citizenship. Seek care without fear. Immigration New Yorkers who are concerned about changes to public charge rule could impact them or their loved ones who can get help by making the best decisions for themselves and their families. You can get informed by speaking with a lawyer. You can also call Action NYC hotline 1-800-354-0365 and say public charge from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday to learn more about your answers to your questions. Again, if you or someone you know might need legal assistance to TPS, travel ban, daca, or public charge, you simply just call 311, say Action NYC for free, safe, and immigration legal help. All right. So what does this mean if my family member or loved one had a visa application denied because of the rescinded travel bans? The January proclamation will not result in any immediate change for individuals whose visas applications were denied under these bans. However, the President has ordered the Department of State to submit proposal by March 6, 2021 to ensure that individuals whose visa applications were denied may have their applications reconsidered. Once such proposal is released, there will be more information about what you, your family member, or your loved ones can do. What does it mean if my family member or loved one currently has a pending case that is impacted by the rescinded travel bans and required a waiver? The January 20th proclamation will not result in any immediate change for individuals who currently have a pending application for which waiver was required. However, President Biden has ordered the Department of State to submit a report by March 6, 2021 with the number of individuals whose visa applications are pending and they plan for expediting these applications. Once such report is released, there will be more information about what you, your family members, and loved ones can do. Public charge. Under the previous policy, public charge was someone who relied on assistance or long-term care from the government to survive. The only benefits that could be considered under the previous public charge test were supplemental security income, SSI, temporary assistance for needy families, TANF, state and local cash assistance for income maintenance, and institutionalization for long-term care at government expense. In addition to the use of these public benefits, federal law also requires the government to look at a number of factors: age, health, family status, assets, resources, financial status, education, and skills to determine whether someone is likely to become a public charge. Under the new public charge rule, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services will consider more types of public benefits when administering the public charge test. Under the new rule, an immigration official will consider more benefits such as non-emergency Medicaid, with exceptions for emergencies, pregnant women and children, supplemental nutritional assistance program, SNAP, or food stamps, and housing assistance, public housing or Section 8, housing vouchers, and rental assistance. These are the only non-cash benefits that immigration officials will consider in the test. Benefits and services that are paid for by the city, such as NYC CAIR, are not considered in the test. Look at other factors differently, such as the individual's age, health, education, employment history, income, assets, health conditions, among other factors, to determine whether an immigrant is likely to become a public charge in the future, even if the individual has never used benefits in the past. So it's important to know that the city of New York and others are fighting in the court to stop this rule from being implemented. Check nyc.gov/public charge for updates and more information. New Yorkers should not stop using public benefits unnecessarily. The public charge rule does not change eligibility requirements for public benefits. Many immigrants do not face a public charge test in their immigration applications. There is no public charge test when applying for citizenship. The benefits of that your children and family members use do not count against you in the public charge test unless you are a beneficiary of those benefits. Immigrants who are sponsoring a family member abroad or will be traveling abroad to apply for a green card or a visa should know that there is a public charge policy at U.S. consulates. However, as of July 29, 2020, a federal court has blocked for now implementation of the new public charge rules at the U.S. consulates abroad. All New Yorkers in need of medical care, food assistance, and other benefits and services should seek the help they need without fear. Many health and social services, including COVID-19 testing and care, food assistance, tenant protection, and free legal help, are available to New Yorkers regardless of immigration status, ability to pay, or employment status. Immigrant New Yorkers who are concerned about changes to the public charge rule could impact them or their loved ones or from getting the help and making the best decisions for themselves and their families. You can get informed by speaking with a lawyer to learn whether the public charge rule has an impact on you before choosing to withdraw from a benefit that you or your family member are lawfully entitled to. Getting answers to questions about how receiving public benefits may affect your immigration status. You can stay up to date on important information about public charge and access additional resources at nyc.gov/public charge. Okay, now to get to the nitty-gritty of the presentation. ICE agents are not local police officers. Why is it important to say that? The same way that we mentioned that you're entitled to certain benefits and that shouldn't affect you if you're worried about public charge. The same thing, if you have an emergency, you have an emergency happens, someone's hurt, you have to report a crime, don't be worried to contact NYPD. They're not ICE agents. If you're worried about immigration, they're not ICE agents. They can't implement immigration law. So ICE agents are not local police officers. A very important thing to know that when you interact with ICE is that they are not local police officers from the NYPD. This is important to know because the NYPD does not conduct civil immigration enforcement. You can report a crime to NYPD and they should not ask you about your immigration status. You should also know that the New York State Police do not conduct civil immigration enforcement and should not ask about your immigration status. Sometimes ICE will wear uniforms that say police on them. This can be confusing. Some ways you can tell the difference between ICE and NYPD is they have different uniforms. NYPD uniforms usually have a patch on their arm that says City of New York on it. ICE uniforms can have a few words such as federal agent, police, police ICE, HSI, which is Homeland Security Investigation, or ICE HSI. So there's a difference. From June 1st to June 7th, ICE and HIS agents were spotted either at protests or outside of the NYPD precincts. These officers did not perform any enforcement duties or investigation work at the behest of the NYPD. Rather, they were just instructed to provide station house security for the NYPD during a time when 7,000 NYPD staff were on sick leave. Moving forward, however, HSI will never be working with NYPD again. ICE agents are not local police officers. Remember, the badges are different. NYPD badges say City of New York. Yes, ICE badges might say ICE, Special Agent, or U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So common places for interactions with ICE. Some common places you might interact with them is at work, at public spaces, or your own home. It is important to know your rights in each of these areas, because your rights change in these different areas. So do you all remember what I said about public and private areas? Whether location is private or public determines whether or not federal immigration authorities need permission to enter. Your home or any home is a private space. Your place of work can have both public and private spaces. The streets, parks, and courthouses are considered public spaces, but more on New York State courthouses on the next slide. So New York State courts. Based on a New York State courthouse rule as of April 17, 2019, law enforcement officials, including ICE agents, can no longer make arrests inside a New York State courthouse without a judicial warrant or judicial order that authorizes the arrest and is signed by a judge. And we'll explain these in the following this. We'll explain more about that later, about the judicial warrant and being signed from a judge, and what's the difference and what it allows them to do, what does it allow them to do, as well as the different types of warrants, which one you can allow them access to, which one is not. So on July 22nd, 2020, the New York State Senate passed the Protect Our Courts Act, POCA. The Protect Our Courts Act prohibits ICE and other law enforcement agencies from making civil arrests, in and around New York State courthouses, unless they have a judicial warrant or a judicial order that authorizes their arrest and is signed by a judge. Again, I'll explain this shortly. So sensitive locations. There are certain types of locations where ICE typically does not conduct immigration enforcement. These are called sensitive locations. Examples of sensitive locations include schools, hospitals, religious institutions, public ceremonies such as weddings, public demonstrations, rallies, funerals, etc. It is important to know that this is an ICE policy and can change at any time. So these are sensitive areas. Typically, they're not going to enforce in these areas that I mentioned, but it's up to them. On October 24, 2011, DHS released the sensitive location memorandum setting forth ICE policy regarding certain enforcement actions by their agents at or focused on sensitive locations. The sensitive locations covered by this policy are schools, hospitals, religious institutions like this mentioned, funeral, wedding, or other public ceremony, and site during the occurrence of public demonstration, such as a rally, march, or parade. According to this policy, ICE enforcement actions will not take place in these locations unless one is that there's an enforcement action involves a national security or terrorism matter. Two, if there's an imminent risk of death, violence, or physical harm to any person or property. Three, the enforcement action involves the immediate arrest or pursuit of a dangerous felon, terrorist, suspect, or any other individual that presents an imminent danger to public safety. Or four, there's an imminent risk of destruction of evidence material to an ongoing criminal case. So how might ICE identify people for immigration enforcement? ICE has a number of investigative tools and databases that it uses to identify individuals who may be removable. They may know about people through a number of ways. People who have submitted an immigration application or otherwise have had interactions with the immigration system, including at the border. Those who have been arrested and finger pointed for a crime, even for very minor crimes, and even for arrests that did not lead to a conviction, and from long ago. ICE has broadened the scope of its enforcement in the last couple of years. Nevertheless, the following groups of people are still a focus for arrest and removal. Those with pending criminal cases for prior convictions, those with an order of removal from an immigration court or have previously been removed, those who commit fraud or misrepresentation in their immigration applications, those who believe pose a threat to public safety or national security. So ICE is able to get information about people who have been arrested through its work with the FBI and other federal agencies. This means that even if the arresting agency, as is the case with NYPD, does not share or strictly limits the information it shares with ICE, ICE is still able to obtain arrest information for criminal defendants. However, NYPD is still able, NYPD does not share victim witnesses information with ICE. Okay, now we're gonna get into the warrants. This is very important. So if ICE comes to your workplace or home, they may have a warrant. Does anyone remember what a warrant is?
If somebody want to arrest someone or search something, they come with the official notice, like from judge or something.
Yes, close, yes, very good. So it's a document issued by a government official that gives law enforcement permission to do certain things. There are different types of warrants, and each one gives ICE permission to do something specific. It's important to know that what each warrant does and what it looks like. So first, we have the administrative warrant. If you cannot see all the details, we don't, unfortunately, I couldn't share it on the screen, but he has my flash drive. If he's able to get it on eventually, that'll be great. But if you can, so the administrative warrant sample is on, we have a look of that, but basically administrative warrant or an ICE warrant is addressed to federal immigration officers by their superiors at DHS and is used in civil immigration enforcement actions. It is signed by an ICE officer, not a judge. So an administrative warrant is signed by another ICE officer, not signed by a judge. You can typically find the signature at the bottom, and you can see who signed it. An administrative warrant does not give ICE the authority to demand entry to the private areas of a workplace or home. So you know, in the workplace, you have a public area like a lobby, but then in the workplace, you might have space just for employees. That's considered the private area. So an administrative warrant, which is coming from the ICE agents, it's an administrative warrant. You can see who signed it. If it says judge, okay, it's not a judicial warrant. It says administrative warrant, it's from their administration. It's from ICE. You don't have to grant the permission for that. And so they might try to get you by this. So we'll talk about the steps about what do you do if that happens. So an administrative warrant or ICE warrant seeks the detention or arrest of people for civil immigration purposes. However, note that these warrants are not from a court. And they'll include the following, types of words: U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Form I-200, Form I-205, warrant for arrest for aliens, or Form I-200, warrant of removal/deportation on Form I-205, signed by an authorized immigration officer. So that's how you know if it's an administrative warrant, if it's signed by an immigration officer and has some of those words mentioned. Judicial warrant. Now this is a different type of warrant. A judicial warrant is signed by a state or a federal judge. A judicial warrant can give ICE permission to enter the private areas that we spoke about earlier. If the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant, they need permission expressed vocally or by action of a resident to enter a home. So if they don't have the judicial warrant, the only way they can enter if somebody says you can come in, or if somebody opens the door and lets them in. That's the only way they can go into private areas. So, only somebody can give them that, you can give them that permission. We don't recommend it, but that's the only way if they don't have a judicial warrant. If they have a judicial warrant, then they have permission, but not an administrative warrant, right? Okay. So if the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant, they need express permission of the owner, manager, or supervisor to enter the private space of a workplace. Can someone give me an example of a private area that we talked about earlier? What's
There's hospitals, living place, and any mosque, any church.
Those are the sensitive areas.
The private areas are where
Your own apartment.
no.
Home.
It's only for the employees.
And in the workplace, the employee section only section, yes. Also, your car can be considered a private space as well.
If they have the warrant and then they can go without permission in the private area?
What kind of warrant? So there's two types of warrant. It's an administrative warrant. Administrative warrant is from the ICE administration. That doesn't give them permission. But a judicial warrant from a state or federal judge, that gives them permission.
They will ask permission.
Or they'll ask for permission.
Yeah.
And if you give it,
they will ask permission to us, right?
yeah. So we'll go over the scenarios and you'll role play a little bit. So how to interact with them. So judges have different ways of writing warrants. They can look different depending on who wrote it. Some things you'll always find are the name and signature of the judge, the name of the property they have permission to search, so what property they're allowed to search, the date and time of the search, so they got to search the date and the time that it says on the warrant, and the location of the court. That will all be on the judicial warrant. So it's issued by a state or a federal judge and authorizes a search or an arrest based on review and compliance with constitutional standards. They are signed by a judge, and they'll include the following types of words: the tier of the court, if it's a district, federal, Supreme Court, the name or description of properties to be searched and addresses, date and time of execution of warrant, the name of the judge or the justice, and the location of the court. So things to know when interacting with ICE. So President Biden signed an executive order that in his first week in office that stopped most but not all deportations from being carried out. This order went into effect January 22nd and was supposed to be in effect for 100 days. However, A lawsuit filed by the Texas Attorney General's office was successful in temporarily stopping the moratorium from going into effect for a few weeks. A hearing will be held on February 19 to decide if the temporary stopping of the moratorium will be extended. So we're going to go through some important things to know, what to do when you're interacting with ICE. If you're approached by a federal immigration enforcement agent, such as ICE, be aware that you have rights. Regardless of your immigration status, you still have rights. So what should you do when you interact with ICE? It's important to stay calm. You have the right to remain silent. You don't have to speak. It can be used against you, right? Like they always say, if you speak to ICE, anything you say can be used against you. You can record the situation with your phone if you feel comfortable, and so as long as you don't interfere with the officers while you're recording. Agents may say you can't record, but that's not true. You can record. However, if agents are trying to talk to you or arrest you, and so starting or continuing to record or film may put you at risk, because now you're stopping them from doing what they want to do, which is talk or arrest you. So you can record, but don't stop them from doing what they want to do. People can also report the ICE activity here. So if the ICE is at your door, right, you don't have to immediately open the door for the ICE, and you don't have to open the door for ICE, and you don't have to speak to ICE. You have the right to remain silent. If you speak to ICE, anything you say can be used against you. You can say, I don't want to talk to you right now. You can just say that. From behind the closed door, you may ask them who they are and to show their badge or their ID or a business card through the window or a little peephole or under the door, under the closed door. You can ask ICE if they have a judicial warrant and to see the warrant through the window or peephole or to pass it under the floor, under the door. If ICE agents do not have a judicial warrant, which is signed by the judge, they cannot enter your home without your permission from an adult at home, except in emergency situations. If they do not have a judicial warrant, you may state that you do not consent to entry or search. But this does not mean you are allowed to physically resist the search. You can tell them, I do not consent, but you can't physically stop them if they don't have a judicial warrant. If ICE is inside your home, if they try to enter your home without your permission, you can tell them clearly, I do not consent to you being in my home. I don't agree to this. Please leave. Saying this may not always stop them, but it may help for any future legal case that can be used for you. If ICE starts to search rooms or items in your home, you can tell them, I do not consent to your search. I don't agree to your search. You can continue to repeat this. If they continue to search without consent, it's fine. It's something that can be used for you in the future against them in a court case, in a legal case. You can tell them that if there are children or other vulnerable residents in your home, you can let them know, hey, look, I have children here, I have an elderly parent here, so on and so forth. If ICE is looking for someone, you do not need to speak. If you choose to speak, you can ask ICE to leave their contact information. While you do not need to tell ICE where the person is located, the person that they're looking for, providing false information may put you at risk. So don't give false information. In an emergency, such as a threat to public safety or a threat to someone's life, ICE can come in without asking your permission. There's an emergency situation going on, then they can enter. If this happens, you still do not have to speak to ICE. So ICE can enter the public space of any workplace without needing a warrant. If it's a public space, they can enter. Public spaces may include office lobby, supermarket, retail store, dining area of a restaurant. ICE cannot legally enter the private space of a workplace unless they have the permission of your employer or a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Private spaces are employee-only areas that may include the break room or storage room of a workplace. If approached by ICE at work, you do not have to answer their questions and can direct them to your employer. your manager, the owner, the boss. Your employers can ask ICE to show their identification and ask if ICE has a warrant. The employer can ask if they have a warrant. As always, if ICE agents try to search your pockets or belongings, you can say, I do not consent to the search. If they search you anyway, you cannot physically stop them, but clearly saying you do not consent may be important in any future legal cases. And brothers, well, we share this information with you, and we had certain situations where brothers were assaulted by ICE physically, so it's very important to say stuff like this, and it can help you in the future. If, God forbid, anyone's interacting in that situation. When ICE agents arrest someone in public, it typically happens quickly. They may call your name out loud and ask you to confirm your name and then detain you. On the street or in the public, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say to ICE can be used against you. Before responding with your name or anything else, you may ask, am I free to go? If yes, then you can say, I don't want to answer your questions, and walk away. If they say you're not free to go, tell them, I want to use my right to not answer any questions. And you can say, I want to speak to a lawyer. If an ICE officer tries to search your pockets or belongings, you can say, I don't agree, I don't consent to your search. But you may not physically resist them. So again, just to reiterate, you should remain calm. ICE may consider those who are running to be likely violating immigration laws. Anything a person says to ICE can be used against them in the deportation proceedings. If the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant, they require consent to enter the business, private spaces, or any part of private residences. So they need a judicial warrant to enter, or somebody who's the owner can say, okay, come in. That's the only way they can come in, private spaces. Judicial warrant or someone's express consent by physical action or verbal.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? So what's the definition of judicial warrant and administrative warrant?
Administrative
Why
warrant.
it comes? If I commit any crime, what kinds of crimes I commit, I'll get administrative and judicial warrant. I may get.
So ICE is enforcing immigration laws, right? Not necessarily crimes.
Mm-hmm.
But anything in regards to immigration policy. Someone overstays their visa, all the different types of immigration statuses. ICE enforces those laws.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have either a judicial or administrative. An administrative warrant is a warrant that's from an ICE official. It's not signed by a judge. That doesn't give them permission. They try to use it to give themselves permission, but ask to see it before you open the door, before you let them in.
By definition, overstaying after the visa expire is a crime or no?
No, no crime. It's a violation of a visa, but any violation of the visa or illegal immigrant, it's not a crime. They cannot punish you for that.
And you can always find out more by calling 311 and getting free legal, say Action NYC, you get free legal help. So 311, say Action NYC, they'll give you free legal help. And you're more than welcome to reach out to our office at CAIR-New York as well. Okay. So in regards to ICE agents, if they don't have a judicial warrant, they require consent to enter the businesses, private spaces, or any part of private residences. If people are willing, they can record the situation with their phone or write down what happened and report it, or report what the ICE agents do at their workplace, home, or in any public location. The agents may tell people they cannot record what is happening. That is not true. You can record. Video footage is very important. They may be able to prove the agents who violated their rights or other people's rights. They can report to the Immigration Defense Project Hotline or the Legal Aid Immigration Hotline. You can report it to us at CAIR-New York as well, .org. You can report any kind of abuses that they do, and we take that matter seriously and try to get you help. If we can't help you ourselves, we'll try to get people who can help you. If they choose to report the ICE encounter, they will need to provide some details about the situation. This is not a line to access immigration legal help. Things to know if you are being arrested by ICE. So if you are being arrested by ICE, these are some things you should know. The agents may not be able to communicate with you in your language. So they may be arresting you and they can't speak to you in the language that you speak. Maybe you speak Bangla or Urdu or Pashtun or all the different languages. The agent doesn't necessarily speak that same language. If you speak to ICE, anything you say to ICE can be used against you. As we said before, you may choose to remain silent. You may state that you wish to speak to an attorney before saying anything or signing anything. So before you say anything, before you sign anything, you can tell them I want to speak to an attorney. And I highly recommend that. You can tell them if you have a medical issue or a need arranged for child care. So any kind of medical issues you have, if you have children that need to be taken care of while you're being arrested, let them know that, because you need your medication. You have certain conditions that they should know, and if there's children that need to be taken care of. You should not lie or give false documents. You should not physically resist. If you are being detained, people in the community may film ICE, so as long as they don't interfere with the officers. If ICE agents are trying to talk or arrest you, starting or continuing to film may put you at risk. If someone you know is being detained by ICE, you can ask where they are being taken. You can ask that. So the detention process can be confusing, and immigration authorities may not walk you through everything, so it is important that you know the information here. Again, the agents may not be able to communicate with you in your language. You have the right to speak to an attorney, and you may ask to speak with your lawyer or take time to obtain an attorney. If you are detained, you have the right to call an attorney or your family. You have the right to be visited by an attorney in detention. You do not have to sign anything. You may ask to speak to your lawyer before signing anything. You have the right to contact your consulate. Write down the name and telephone number of the deportation officer assigned to your case. Just some general information. For immigrants arrested by ICE and NYC, they're generally processed in New York and then detained at a local jail facility in New Jersey or upstate New York that contracts with ICE to hold ICE detainees. People can look on the online ICE locator to confirm whether and where their loved ones are being detained by ICE. The website is icelocator.ice.gov. They will need information such as country of birth, the A number, full name, and date of birth information. The federal government does not provide lawyers to immigrants facing deportation, but city-funded legal representation may be available. Low-income detained immigrants who do not already have an attorney and whose case is before an immigration judge may be appointed an attorney through the New York Immigration Family Unity Project. Some immigrants in detention may not get an automatic opportunity to go before an immigration judge. This includes those who are previously ordered removed, either because they missed a court hearing or because they lost their case, or had previously been removed at the border. Such immigrants are not eligible for the New York Immigration Family Unity Project, they may face a quick deportation if they missed court appointments, if their case was already rejected. To learn more and get help, NYC residents can call Action NYC at 1-800-354-0365. New York State residents outside of New York City can call the New Americans hotlines at 1-800-566-7636.
So we can finish it now.
We have several slides to go through. Hopefully we can finish in maybe the next 10-15, possible.
Okay.
If we're doing the city, so there's a certain amount we have to cover. So things to know, I'll try to run it through quickly. Things to know if your loved one is detained. If your loved one has been detained by ICE and you don't know where they're taken, you can find out by using the locator, ICE locator, not ice.gov. To use the locator, you need your loved one's country and birth, their A number or country of birth, first name, last name. The names must be spelled correctly, and the date of birth. It is safe to use the locator. Each ICE facility has their own rules about visitation and sending money. You can look up visitation and other immigration here, ice.gov/detention. ice.gov/detention dash facilities, and call the jail to confirm that the information is still correct. Generally, people who are undocumented can visit their loved ones, and their immigration status should not be flagged. However, it is important to review each jail's requirements for identification and whether background checks are required. If you are worried about the risk of visiting a loved one, you should speak to an attorney. To find out when and where your loved one's next hearings will take place, you can call the eoir hotline 1-800-898-7180 to know when their next hearing will take place. And you just input the person's A number. If they do not appear in the system but do not have a court case, press 3 to check for old decisions. If it says that a court ordered removal, it means that your loved one will not get a new hearing, and it's extremely important for them to get legal help immediately, as they will be in a fast track to deportation. All right. We have some role playing here, but we'll go through that. So some ways to prepare for immigration enforcement besides practicing are know your rights. The presentation and other similar presentations can help equip you how to interact with immigration officers. Create an emergency plan for you and your family in case you are detained or deported. So when you're creating the emergency plan, consider choosing an emergency contact and memorize their phone number. This should be someone you trust, including someone like your lawyer. Choose a standby guardian for your children. What's good, you have those little cards that has our numbers on there. Usually pull that card out, tells you what to do, real quickly what to do if you're interacting with them, and it has our number on there as well. Choose a standby guardian for your children. Consider this in your emergency plan. Who's going to stand by? Who's going to take care of your children if you get detained, if you get deported? A standby guardian is a person you will choose to take care of your children when you cannot for up to 1 year. Making sure you're a standby guardian does not mean you're giving up your legal rights as a parent, but it means that someone can, that you're giving the guardian permission to make certain decisions for your children when you cannot. To learn more about standby guardians, you can call the Action NYC hotline. The number will be up on the upcoming. We said you can call 311 to say Action NYC. So carrying valid proof of status. Be cautious about carrying documents that identify you as a citizen of another country. So if you carry, don't be careful about carrying that documentation saying that you're a citizen of another country. It can be, they might use that against you in some way. So keep all documents in a safe place, such as a lockbox that your emergency contact can access. Memorize important phone numbers, such as your lawyer and emergency contact. Okay, we already went over standby guardian. So get an immigration legal checkup. If you have any concerns about your immigration status, you would like to learn more about eligibility for immigration benefits like a green card, citizenship, or you need help with an immigration application. If you would like to consult with a free, safe, and legal services provider. If you want to learn more about your rights as an immigrant New Yorker or make a complaint against your employer, you can call 311. So MOIA provides, and this is the Mayor's Office of Immigration Affairs, provides legal support through their constituent service line and Action NYC. Action NYC will connect you to free and safe immigration legal help in your New York City community and in your language. Action NYC provides free, comprehensive, and confidential legal screenings to determine eligibility for immigration benefits. Free, safe immigration legal help for a range of immigration benefits, including citizenship, green card applications and renewals, deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA, and temporary protected status, TPS, and more. So Action NYC is located in your neighborhood, schools, hospitals, and throughout the 5 boroughs. Make an appointment by calling 311 and saying Action NYC. And it's toll free. It's a live hotline that you can access. You connect to immigration legal help, answer your immigration and naturalization questions. The hotline provides assistance in more than 200 languages. So through the hotline, you can get general immigration and naturalization questions answered. You can receive an immigration legal appointment, and you can obtain referrals to immigrant-related programs. By calling 311, say Action NYC to connect you with a live operator. And all those calls are confidential. So avoid immigration fraud. It's important to get legal screening to know these types of relief you may be eligible for. it's also important to be cautious of the person or business you are discussing your immigration options with. Inappropriately filing for an immigration application is not only a waste of money, but it may also result in deportation. Immigration law is complicated. Beware of fraudulent immigration providers who may indicate otherwise and make false promises. Watch out for false promises such as an easy way to obtain a green card. If somebody's giving you false promises, they're saying a way to get a work permit or a visa immediately. Beware of these. Statements indicating that there are no risks or consequences. Claims of special influence with immigration authorities. So if people are telling you this, be cautious of that. Right? That may be fraudulent activity. It's a waste of time, money, and it can be against you if you follow that route. So once you found a legal representative, always ask questions. Even if the provider was recommended by a family member or a friend or a member of the following. Only a lawyer or individual accredited or recognized by the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, can give you immigration legal advice. Immigration legal advice. Ask for proof of bar or license or accreditation or recognition from the Department of Justice. Get a second opinion. Always get a second opinion. In some countries, notaries are like lawyers. That's not true in the United States. Notaries are not lawyers in the United States. A notario, or another non-lawyers can only translate, photocopy, notarize, take your photo, and help you get documents and medical tests. That's only what a notary can do. Only go to providers that have a physical location. Ask for a written agreement of services to provided that is signed by a provider. Read the agreement before signing it and keep the signed copy for your records. Do not pay for government application forms. Forms are free and can be downloaded online at www.uscis.gov/forms. Ask for a written receipt with the name and address of the provider. Keep your original documents and copies of all documents submitted to the government. Do not sign any blank or incomplete forms or anything you don't fully understand. Make sure that your legal representation is not actually an immigration assistance service provider or notary. To report immigration fraud, you can call the New Americans hotline at 1-800-566-7636. We're just going to go through some slides from the city about COVID testing, answer any questions, and we'll be done. So COVID-19 testing. All New Yorkers should get a COVID-19 test. This is from the Office of the Mayor. Whether or not they have symptoms or are increased risk. If you have already been tested and were negative, you should get another test if you have COVID-19 symptoms or concern about possible exposure. The Test and Trace Corps is an initiative to stop COVID-19 infections in New York City and help the city open back up. If you test positive, you will receive a call from a tracer who will ask you if you need more medical attention, help you arrange isolate at your home or a free hotel, and create a list of everyone who you had contact with since shortly before the onset of the symptoms. If you test positive, a tracer will also facilitate healthcare as well as mental health services and get meal and medication delivery to you. Free testing, regardless of immigration status or whether you have an insurance, is available at the following locations: all NYC health and hospitals, City MD, Advantage Healthcare Physicians. There are a number of hundreds of community testing sites across the city, as well as mobile testing units visiting different locations throughout the 5 boroughs. For more information, visit nyc.gov/COVID test. So rapid COVID-19 testings, you can make an appointment for a free rapid COVID-19 test at multiple COVID express testing sites throughout the city. The test results will be available within 24 hours or less. COVID-19 tests performed at COVID express testing sites will be free to all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status. Testing will be available by appointment only. The fastest way to make an appointment is to choose a time through the DOH-MH online scheduler. For more information, visit the COVID-19 rapid testing webpage of the Department of Health DOH-MH website. You may have heard of COVID-19 antibodies testing and wondering if you need one. The COVID-19 antibody test is a blood test to find antibodies, which are proteins in your body that fight the infections. A positive test for antibodies is not necessarily an indication, doesn't mean that you're immune from COVID-19, but you'll know if you had COVID-19 in the past, and it'll help develop research for vaccines and other ways to fight the virus. You should get an antibody test if you don't have COVID-19 symptoms and you haven't been sick in the last 2 weeks and haven't tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 2 weeks. Then you should take an antibody test. Free antibody testing is available on a walk-in basis at the 11 acute care facilities of NYC Health and Hospitals at the Gotham Community Health Center sites. So treatment. As important to able to access coronavirus testing, it's critical that you can access healthcare services if you do get sick with COVID-19. First, if you have health insurance, it's important to remember that all health insurance plans must cover COVID-19 testings without any out-of-pocket expenses, payments. Second, New York State Emergency Medical covers COVID-19 testing and treatment without any out-of-pocket payments for low-income uninsured residents, including undocumented immigrants. If you want to sign up for emergency medical in advance, contact NYC Department of Health Insurance Enrollers by visiting the DOH-MH website. You can also call 311 and say, get covered. Third, if you have disputes with hospitals or doctors about the medical bills, or disagree with health insurance plans about eligibility or coverage, or just have questions about navigating the healthcare and health insurance system, you can call Community Health Advocates CHA hotline at 1-888-614-5400, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. And CHA has a language line that can provide translation services in more than 170 languages. We're almost done. COVID-19 vaccine. There are 2 vaccines approved for use, the Pfizer and the Moderna. Both vaccines are safe and more than 94% effective. You cannot get COVID-19 from the vaccine. If you are concerned about getting the vaccine, you should speak to your doctor. The vaccine is free to all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status. You do not need to share your immigration status with them. Your privacy will be protected. New York State is expanding COVID-19 vaccine eligibility in phases, so to make sure the most vulnerable people in the community can get vaccine first. We are currently in phase 1B, expansion 2, but most New Yorkers will likely be able to get the vaccine by mid-2021. I believe we're in phase 2 now. So during the phase 1B, current people with underlying conditions were eligible. People who had cancer, current or remission, including 9/11 related cancers, chronic kidney disease, people with pulmonary disease, 9/11 related pulmonary disease, intellectual and development disabilities, including Down syndrome, heart conditions, immunocompromised state, severe obesity, pregnancy, sickle cell disease, thalassemia, type 1 or type 2 diabetes, mellitus, cerebrovascular disease, neurological conditions, and liver disease. To be eligible, you must live or work in New York State. Proof of residence or employment is currently required. A letter from your employer or driver license or ID NYC are all acceptable. For a full list of accepted proof of identification, there's a website here, covid19.vaccine.health.ny.gov/frequently asked questions. This is not an exhaustive list of people who are eligible. For a complete list of who's currently eligible, you can visit nyc.gov for vaccine eligibility. All right. So how do you get vaccinated? You can first make sure you're eligible, make an appointment. You can make an appointment at vaccinefinder.nyc.gov or calling 1-877-829-4692. So select your preferred site to see available appointments. Some sites can be booked online and some need to be called directly. This is specified on the Vaccine Finder. Once you selected your preferred site, fill out any required forms. This may be different depending on what site you choose. The appointment for your second dose of the vaccine will be scheduled after your first dose. Your second dose appointment will be about 1 month later and must be done at the same locations. So we are pretty much done with the presentation, but there are some questions if you guys wanted to answer, just get an idea. So thank you for all for participating. Just some questions that if ICE agents do not have permission to enter a private space, what kind of warrant do they need?
Judge from the judge.
Yes, and that's called a judicial warrant. So they can't have access unless they have a judicial warrant. Very good. 2, do you have the right to speak to a lawyer before talking to ICE or signing documents for ICE?
Definitely.
Yes, you do. Can you call 311 for details on any of the city services?
True.
Yes, you can. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you all so much. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you. Is